Well, joining me in the studio now, Ribal Al-Assad, who's the cousin of the Syrian president, Bashar al-Assad, and a long-standing critic of the regime. His father, who used to run the country's internal security services, has also been accused of orchestrating the massacre of thousands of people in Hama back in 1982. We'll deal with that question in a second, but right now, and particularly tonight, these reports, at least, that the army has in some places turned on itself against the regime. Are you hearing anything like that?
Yes, I mean, I've heard from our internal sources in Syria that this is not correct at the moment. Of course, the regime has been repressing its own people, and but on the other hand, you're having a lot of Islamist groups in Syria who are taking advantage of the situation and who are trying to hijack the peaceful demonstrations. As we all remember in the beginning, all those peaceful demonstrations were chanting 111, all the Syrian people are one. Well, today you have a lot of people chanting sectarian slogans like Alawites to the coffins, Christians to Beirut, which is really becoming really scary. And
that's because, as you would see it, the regime has absolutely encouraged this to become a sectarian thing, divide and rule and repress.
Yes, there are people in the regime who are, very worried around Bashar, who are worried about losing their interest, like his cousins and other generals who are, let me make sure of that, who are not Alawites. Some of them are Alawites, but most of them are not Alawites. There are a lot of them who are Sunni Muslims. You have Christians, you have Druze, head of those security apparatus, and they don't want to see any changes happening in Syria. And as you know, for the past years, they have helped a lot of Islamist groups who today are turning against them.
And the truth is, really, that the whole house of Assad needs to go. I assume you would agree with that, presumably, notwithstanding the fact that your father was also allegedly part of a very repressive system.
What we're calling for, and what my father has been calling for since the 70s, and this is why people don't talk about it much, is that he has been calling for democracy since that time. He had Al-Fursan magazine, which was the only media in Syria at the time in the 70s, who used to call 70s and 80s, who used to call for democracy. And why democracy? It was so important for a country like Syria, where it had so many minorities, and that was the only way that all the people could live under the rule of law, and they are protected under the rule of law. And this is why they have accused him at that time of being a traitor, and they wanted him out of the country as soon as possible.
So right now, in Bashar al-Assad, a lot of people in the West saw him as a reformer, perhaps, after his father, the boy Assad after the father. How long can this repression go on, and indeed, can it work?
I mean, of course, it cannot go on forever, and this is why. But we cannot forget that Syria has alliances with a lot of groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, for example, and Iran, who would never allow Syria to fall. Because if Syria falls, geostrategically, Iran would be isolated. And they would never allow that. So they are ready, as we've heard 2 days ago, the Iranians have threatened Turkey indirectly, and they have threatened also the Gulf countries. At the same time, you have, television satellite channels, one of them is based in Saudi, the other one in Egypt, who just popped out of nowhere a few months ago, and they're starting to incite on religious violence and calling jihad on Alawites, which is really crazy. I mean, of course, we want to get rid of a dictator regime. We want democracy. We want peaceful transition to democracy, but we don't want we don't want Islamists in power.
There, sadly, we'll have to leave it, but a sense there, Ribal Al-Assad, of why Syria matters beyond her own borders. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you, sir.